Hello and welcome to WTO Forum. Among the 8 Millennium Development Goals is the issue of gender equality. Equality not least in economic terms. Sociologists, economists, development experts are widely in agreement that giving economic empowerment to women benefits society across a wide range of areas. So the question today is, how can the WTO and the global trading system assist in the economic empowerment of women across the world? We're very fortunate to have with us today 2 experts on this field. We have Deborah Berlinck, correspondent for O Globo, the Brazilian media giant, and Ottilia Chikosha, the executive director of the Harare-based Regional Export Promotion Trust. Ladies, welcome to you both.
Well,
Hello.
Thank you.
Ottilia, how can trade generally, and the WTO more specifically, help in the economic empowerment of women?
Thank you, Keith. We feel that trade can actually contribute towards, at WTO, can actually facilitate the participation of women. It's mainly the participation, their inclusion in the processes, and how policies can actually be able to encompass them. So basically, if women are allowed to participate in trade markets, we build their capacity and ensure that frameworks are put in place for their participation. We also feel that because of the issue of, the background of women, that most of them, they are actually concentrated in non-agriculture economies and informal sector. Most of them are just starting, and the trade that actually take place between the women is normally small-scale trade, small cross-border trade. So we feel that if we look at rules that are compatible and that can actually bring in issues of women where they are actually bring into the process, maybe we can have examples, for example, around labor standards and rates. Women are concentrated normally in areas of unpaid work, and so their services, as much as they provide so much services to the world, they get so little remuneration from the profits. And for example, I would say in Southern Africa, about 70% of our women are actually in the agriculture sector. What would be put in place for issues around subsidies, building up their, the protectionism process, and maybe how we can actually promote small-scale farmers, and then in that way, women get to benefit, and also bringing in issues of intellectual property rights. For example, women are in issues of tourism, they are working on their crafts. When I come up with a design, how do I get to protect it as my design as a woman, the fabric that I have done, and say, this is mine, I own it, because we believe they are also developmental. If I own a design, then I can sell the design alone. But it's different when it comes to women. There is not that framework where they can actually be built their capacity. So it's basically their participation and capacity and alternatives that can be put. And women, they constitute about 50% of the population of the world. So if women are sitting and they are not doing anything, and they are not putting, which means we've got 50% of our productive population not doing anything. So we want to actually ask WTO to actually come with the rules that are gender sensitive, that can bring women on board.
Deborah?
Yes, I think before analyzing how trade can contribute for a more gender equality, we should see why this is not happening. If bringing women into the global markets means more productivity, more economic growth, if it makes economic sense. So why this is not happening the way it should happen, that is with decent work for women? Because I think the problem is not so much bringing women into the global market, but the way they are being brought to the global market. There are appalling cases being reported by the UN and by NGOs. For example, in China, in the province of Guangdong, women are working 150 hours overtime per month most of them, 60% don't have contracts. In Chile, the same. If you look at the agricultural sector, 75% of women don't have any contracts. So in sum, more trade obviously create more jobs, but women who largely work on export-led industries are not benefiting from this growth, even though they are contributing for the export growth of many countries. So the question is why this is happening. There are several factors. I would say that the root cause would be cultural, religious, and tradition. In several societies, women have a lower role. They are seen as secondary workers. So obviously in the workplace, you know, their gender issues are not taken into consideration. Employers also fail to identify the potential women have in terms of productivity. So for me, the basic question lies in creating awareness to governments and to society in general that by empowering women, you're also not only empowering families, you're helping a country grow. You're helping the economy. You're helping develop a country. And this will not happen at the expense of men. So I think trade and the WTO can contribute by maybe discussing gender issues. Not necessarily, I mean, it's very controversial whether they should include in their rules gender issues, because that might get too complicated, but at least discussing, helping disaggregate data to show where the problem lies, and obviously encourage governments to adopt proactive policies.
In listening to you both, there seems to be a very strong element that what we're talking about here is national labor standards as much as anything. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, true, because at the end of the day, women constitute more in the service sector. Though we are still advocating for women to also move into positions of decision making, but 3/4 you move into an industrial firm, you find women only occupy lower positions. And now how then can WTO come in and see how best these women can be remunerated in a way that they also benefit, considering the fact that they have trade in services and they look at how services are delivered. So we still feel to say, if it goes that extra mile to actually discuss the gender issues and maybe look at the issues and incorporate them, it can make a change. It can make women actually benefit from the processes. But also looking at issues around market access. Women have projects that they work on, but the access and the level at which they can access the markets is also one that I would call maybe it's a challenge to say, how can they also be part of the system? How can we simplify some of the processes? I'll take an example. For example, in Southern Africa, we've been looking at women who've been doing cross-border trade. When they do cross-border trade, they export everything across the economies, whether it's tourism, manufacturing, it's agro-processed foods and stuff like that. But there have been challenges on issues of rules of origin to say which product qualifies under which specification. But they have come up with the COMESA simplified trade regime. It's trying, but to what extent? How can then the rules then come in? So we feel that discussions around those areas would actually maybe be able to facilitate for women to be brought on board.
Mm-hmm.
You agree with that?
Keith, I certainly agree with your assessment that it's a more labor question than a trade question, and that's.
I was merely asking the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I understood that. Yeah, no, it was a good question. So to answer your question,
I'm the neutral observer here.
to answer your question, I do think it's more a labor question than a trade question. And also, it's a matter of governments understanding the potential of women in the workforce. You know, educating women means bringing, you know, as well as educating men. It means, you know, creating the potential for development. So you can liberalize trade, you can open up your economies, but if you don't have a workforce prepared for competition, this will have a very bad effect on the workforce in general and on women in particular, because they are less prepared.
And men have to be part of this equation too, don't they?
Yes, they do. And I think also the other issue, besides the labor side, is also the issue of behavior change. Accepting women to believe that women can do it. Actually, the cultural aspect where a woman has to be submitting to men and maybe to society expectations and other issues that have been, actually the cultural and religious practices has provided a gap where women have been left out of the processes. But we are saying now, turning with the passage of time, things have changed. The women that we knew and the women that we have today are different. The women we have today are enterprising, hardworking, and business people. And they are business-minded. Most of them, they have done their education. And, you know, it's still in some cases where I provide the same kind of job, the same men, and my male counterpart can actually have better recognition than I do. We do all the work here, and the recognition goes to men. So maybe it's time that we need to have that balance where the recognition can also come to women when we have done it. So basically what we're saying is, let's level the playing ground.
Deborah Berlinck, your final thoughts.
Well, men definitely have to be part of the equation, because in a lot of countries, men are at the command, and we need to let them understand that the empowering of women and bringing women into the workforce in a good way, because you can bring them in a very bad way, is good for them as well, for their families, and well, so it's a win-win situation, I would say.
Ottilia Chikosha, you have the last word.
Yes, my last words are to say, we look forward that as women are brought on board, they are very important because they bring food security to the home. Once you empower a woman, you have empowered a nation. You have provided food, and for all those who are not even within. So we feel that women is a strong force. Let's bring them in. Let's have them become productive, and let's level the playground so that they also participate, and we can see a better world.
Ottilia Chikosha, Deborah Berlinck, thank you to you both, and thanks to you for watching WTO Forum.